Well, hello, 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 and welcome to the Wife Coach TV podcast, where we offer Christian marriage advice for married women 40 and over without all the drama. And tonight, we're going to be talking about marriage and money, in particular, how to find scholarships and other types of financial aid other than loans. We'll talk about that for your kids. You may have a kid who's in high school or even middle school, and you really need to start thinking about that, because once you blink, you're going to find your kid walking across that graduation stage, and you're going to be like, where did all the time go? Where is all my money going? So we're going to talk. And, I tell my kids every single day, I am not paying for y'all to go to school. And I mean that. I am telling you. But anyway, today, my special guest is Miss 𝗖𝗂𝗶𝗰𝗸. 𝗖𝗂𝗂𝗶𝗰𝗸 is the proud mother of two children, 𝗬𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗀, 24, and 𝗦𝗰𝘂𝗂𝗍𝒻, 17, and she pins them as being her biggest accomplishments. Ms. Stewart is the director of the Educational Talent Search at Hampton University, which serves 820 first-generation middle and high school students within Hampton City Schools. As a graduate of Ashford University, 𝗖𝗂𝗶𝗰𝗸 received a BA in psychology and later attended Liberty University to receive an MA in Human Services Counseling and an MA in Marriage and Family Therapy. Ms. Stewart is currently a student in the Hampton University Counseling, Education, and Supervision doctoral program. Woo-hoo, go for HU. All right, creatively, 𝗖𝗂𝗶𝗰𝗸 is a published author and of the women's journal Devotions for Today's Every Woman that shares her personal journey of life and faith, which is available currently on Amazon. She's also the host of 𝗖𝗂 Speaks, The Abundant Life, a podcast to inspire and promote change within self and then the encompassing community. 𝗖𝗂 is a woman of faith, thankfulness, joy, peace, and actively works to change the narrative of undeserved youth and families. 𝗖𝗂, welcome to our podcast this night.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Well, let's go ahead and get started, girl. 𝗖𝗂𝗶𝗰𝗸, start a little bit about sharing your background and what has inspired you to focus so much on finding scholarships for students.
I would say through my own educational journey. And so I'm not the traditional student. I went to college after high school, but I didn't finish. It wasn't until later, after kids, family, and things of that nature, that I did finish my bachelor's degree. And then I went on to get my master's degree, and now I'm working on my PhD. And so it wasn't until during that time that I realized that education was a passion of mine. However, education costs is very expensive. And I realized that as I had to take out loans, because being a non-traditional student, the grants and certain scholarships aren't really available to you, especially as a working woman, where you can't go on a campus and actually intern somewhere. You're actually having to find other means to pay for school. And so once I realized the amount of debt that education costs, I was adamant that I was not going to allow my kids to take out loans, nor if I did it for my kids, I was even more adamant that I was going to do it for somebody else's children as well.
Excellent, excellent. So it's a beautiful thing when, even if you go through something, you love people enough, and of course your kids enough, to not let them go through the harshness of the loans. And I fully understand paying loans for 20-something years and them drawing interest, and thank God for the forgiveness plan, but that may not be available 10, 15 years from now. So the best option would be to look at scholarships as well as grants, things that you don't have to pay back. So that's an excellent story and just a desire that you have, and I appreciate that. Now, you work at Hampton University, of which I am an alumna, and we are fellow Hamptonians now, okay? And
Absolutely.
you work in the Educational Talent Search program. So tell us a little bit about this program and what it can offer middle and high school students.
So Educational Talent Search at Hampton University is a pre-college exposure program. It is all about preparing students for college entry by giving them as much information as possible, but also support. And so my target area is Hampton City Schools, but TRIO, as they're formally called, TRIO is a suite of programs that are nationally offered at different colleges and universities, HBCUs, as well as PWIs, and also some nonprofit organizations as well. And so it's a great program for who the main target is, first generation, and I'm gonna say limited income families. And then, but you also can serve a population of others. And through that process, we take them on college tours to really get them to see campuses firsthand. It's nothing that no one had to tell them about. It was something that they can actually experience by going on these college tours. They get support in terms of SAT preparation, ACT preparation, financial literacy, assistance with FAFSA, and then just being immersed in a college experience. Because my program is based on a college, the kids get to actually participate in some of the events that the university holds. And I often host events for the students and their families on the campus as well. So they take part in step shows and football games, also some panel talks as well. And so it's an unlimited resource when used properly to get kids exposed to STEM, to give them knowledge about financial literacy, about financial aid, and a whole lot of other things that definitely would help support them through their educational process from middle to high. And so the tutoring and the mentoring that we provide is essential for their academic success, but also preparing them as they are preparing to graduate from high school and matriculate through the other grades.
Excellent. And I'll tell you, it saves you money because my kids have been to Duke, Virginia Tech, North Carolina Central. So those are 4 or 5 less schools that I have to take my children to because they have already been there with 𝗪 and her crew. So it's an excellent program. Now, tell us, if parents were curious, because everyone is not in the Virginia area, if parents were curious about whether this program is at a local school or maybe a school a few hours away, how could they go about researching to see whether it's at a PWI, which for those of you who do not know what that is a predominantly white institution, or of course HBCUs, which is historically Black colleges and universities. So how can they find out where these schools are located that have this program?
I would say just Google. I am the Google queen. And so it's not too much that you wouldn't be able to find through just a touch of the stroke of your keyboard or your phone. And so I would say if you live by a local college or university, look up TRIO programs at, I'm gonna say, University of Pennsylvania, or look up TRIO programs at University of Las Vegas, because they are national programs. And what it'll do, it'll show you what TRIO programs they have available, because TRIO is also pre-college as well as college. So there's a college side to TRIO, and then there's a pre-college side, which would be those middle to high school students that I serve. But also there's a program that serves strictly high school students, which is called Upward Bound. And a lot of you may be more familiar with Upward Bound than Educational Talent Search, but both of those are TRIO programs dedicated to serve and help students navigate that educational process into college entry.
Okay. Yeah, I have heard of Upward Bound because of some family members. So that makes sense. So normally, are they both housed together? Both the two?
No, it's really dependent upon the university.
Okay.
And so it's a grant and it's an application process that they actually have to go through, and they're awarded the grant, at some point before the next fiscal year to say, hey, you won this grant, and that, you'll be able to serve however many students that was written in a grant. So it's really up to the colleges and institutions to really seek out those funds to help make an impact on families who could definitely use that support.
Okay, so the school is awarded a grant and then they're allowed to serve so many students in that area.
Yeah, so they have to apply for it. It's just like an application to a job almost,
Okay.
is that you actually are applying for those grants. And so the government sends out announcements, specifically the Department of Education sends that they have available, and they really try to encourage as many people to apply as possible, so more students can be impacted and served with programs like mine. So definitely.
Okay. And what is the process normally for the student who wants to? And then what is the time period? Like, when should they start applying? What's the process for them to get into the program?
Sure. So specifically for educational talent search, we start recruiting as early as middle school. And so as early as sixth grade. And technically this year, I went to fifth grade graduations, those elementary students that are actually going to be sixth grade students. So I kind of start kind of early by being a presence inside of the community, going to outreach events, connecting with schools to see what students would be interested or parents would be interested in. And so the earlier, the better. Middle school is that age where you really need to start exposing your child to career and college. So by the time they get to high school, they have a better idea of who it is they would like to be, what career field they would like to be in. But here's the other thing, you can actually start exposing them at an early age to those things so they can make a concrete decision by the time they graduate high school, and they'll be on a better plane. Absolutely. And so I would say, as far as the application process, every area or university, the application is going to ask some very standard questions, and typically is it could be electronic or paper, but ours is electronic. And what we do is ask demographic information. What's your name? What grade? What school does your child go to? We do ask some very important details, like what type of income is in the household. Do you have degrees, and what types of degrees are they? Are they trade school? Are they 2-year degrees or 4-year degrees? And I will tell parents, don't ever be afraid that you may have too much education or too many degrees. That's not the case, because we can serve a group of others who can benefit from this program as well. Our target is that first generation limited income population, but we can serve so many. And so I have families that are within my program that have zero income and maybe a high school diploma. And then I also have families who have no degrees, but they may be making an abundance of income because they might work at the shipyard. The shipyard is big here, and so they might have a good job in the shipyard. But I also have families who have degrees and they have income. So income that we're able to serve. It's just that you have to apply, you have to be willing to share the information, and sometimes you might be put on a wait list, but if you apply early, you still have time to be able to join that program.
Excellent, excellent. And that's very important. And so, as Shakia said, don't be afraid to apply because you think you have too much. Every child needs an opportunity to go to school. And let me just tell y'all, as you're watching this, every program may not have someone as resourceful as Shakia. So you may have to advocate even more. She advocates for us. I advocate for my kid too, but she is definitely a co-advocator. But it may not be like that where you are. So you're going to have to do maybe some extra work to get what you want for your kid. And it all boils down to, what do you want for your kid? But more importantly, what does that child want? So just, it's all about building relationships, seeing where those people who are in authority in that area are, and seeing how much they will go for you. But that's why we're having this podcast, so that if there's a situation where maybe the organization or the program is not as resourceful at the one here at Hampton University, you will know some things that you can look for, some people you can connect with, so that you can get the very best for your child in their educational experience. So very good. So many parents of college-bound students feel overwhelmed by the financial burden of college. What are some of the misconceptions about scholarship research, grant research, that you have encountered with your parents and the students?
I would say the first misconception, and it's not so much about the scholarship research, it's the fact that you may not have to do any work to find the money. The key to all of this is that you need to do research, and the school is not going to award you all of your scholarship money. And so I would say that's the biggest misconception. Just because your child has a 4.0 GPA, they may have been very active and involved in school. I would say I encourage every child to apply for outside scholarships, whether they be local or national, but also look at that school's website to see what scholarships you won't automatically qualify for, and seeing stuff that you might actually have to put some work in. So that's the biggest one that I run across is the fact that they feel like the school is just going to award them the money and it's going to take care of everything. That is not the truth at all. The
Oh,
second misconception I would really say is that scholarships are really based on people who have need. That's another, telltale, not so so truth. And so I would say there are scholarships out here for everyone, for many different variety of things, reasons, needs, degrees, or majors. And so the biggest key is the research. You have to research what it is that your child is interested in, look for the money that they might qualify for, and spend the time doing the work. It is better to get the work done now with the application, the essay writing, and the submission versus them having to slave themselves to work to try to pay loans on the back end. You're not going to understand the relief you're going to have to know that your child is going to walk away, that you're going to walk away without having to pay a dime after they receive that degree. That's what you want.
and parents, you need to know, and you need to tell your children, this is another job. It's just that simple. Let them know you are going to be writing your essays. You are going to be doing the work. You are going to be preparing for SATs. And I don't know if you mentioned this, 𝗪𝗂𝗍, but they also have an SAT, ACT boot camp. My son went this summer, and they went over test taking strategies and all of these things, mental health and all kinds of things. So you definitely want to look for this type of program where you are, or something similar to it, because I know, and I'm a former teacher, but I know I cannot give my sons everything they need to prepare for college. And that's why we need organizations and programs like the Educational Talent Search and, Upward Bound, and people like 𝗪𝗂𝗍, who has a wealth of knowledge to make sure, and a sincere desire to help. This is not about her getting paid and the money. This is about her helping you as a parent and making things smoother, so that we're talking in the context of marriage, so you don't have so many money problems in your marriage. And for those of you, maybe you're watching this and maybe you're a single parent, this is for you too. It's universal, but it's important for you to understand that this is going to be another job, but it will be, as 𝗪𝗂𝗍 said, well worth it in the end.
Yeah. And I would say, just to add on to that, I am a single mom. I have a 24-year-old daughter, as you heard. She managed to get through college and we didn't have to take out any loans for her. And now I have a son who's entering Hampton this fall, and he has no loans to be at Hampton University, which is a private institution, and it costs a pretty penny. But we did the work, and I'm not even happy with the amount of work we did, because we could have did some more. And so the goal is always just to make sure that that need is met, definitely. And so don't believe just because you're a single mom you don't have a lot of money. When my daughter went to school, my income was way different than what it is now. To the point, and I'll just be very transparent, like I was receiving, aid, as far as money and everything goes. I was receiving aid, like they had Medicaid, like I was a low income family, especially after I finished my degree. And I won't get into my whole story, but it is one for the books. But I will tell you is that I didn't have a lot of money to put her through school. I don't have a lot of money to put my son through school, but we use faith. And I love what Tiffany said. I told both of them, I don't have no money, and I'm not taking out any loans in my name, and you're not taking out any loans either. I was just that adamant. I said, all I want to pay is a deposit for your housing. That's it. And that's exactly what we did.
Power words. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. She spoke it. She called those things into it, because y'all, we are a Christian-based, faith-based podcast. She called those things that be not as though they were, and she got exactly what she said. So that's a powerful testimony. Now, 𝗪𝗂𝗍, for parents who may not have the highest academic performance, you talked about lower income, but also like not the highest academic performance. What strengths, or the students, I'm sorry, the students who may not have, maybe they're not that 3.5, 4.9, maybe they take those AP classes or dual enrollment classes. What strengths can they focus on, and what types of scholarships should they be looking for?
I would tell any parent, any child, your good credit score as far as GPA is a 3.0. You can get in most institutions with their 3.0 GPA. Now, at this time, a lot of SATs are being waived at universities, and this happened, during the course of the pandemic, when college entry, was kind of not really in college. You weren't really on the campus, but you were at home, and so they waived a lot of those tests. And so they really only went by your GPA, and some are still that way. We're seeing now that SAT scores and SAT testing is really being required at some major institutions, but I do foresee that it will trickle down. And the reason why you want to have your child take the SAT is because you want those merit-based scholarships. That's why you want them to take the SAT or the ACT, which is the other test. But I will say that the biggest thing, and repeat your question again, I'm so sorry, because I started
Sure.
talking about something else.
No, sure. For those whose children are not the highest academic performing,
No,
what
yeah.
would you say, what can they focus on as far as scholarships?
Well, yes, 3.0. 3.0 GPA is the good credit score. So if they are, say, a junior this year, and they might have like a 2.5 or a 2.7 or a 2.8, because that was my son. Like his junior year, I think he ended with like a 2.8, maybe a 2.9. And I really had to put the pressure on him. Like, I need you to get a 3.0. And it wasn't not because he wasn't capable. He was lazy. His freshman year started out in the pandemic. Sophomore year, he was same scenario, and then eventually they went back to school, but it was time that really hurt him, and so I would really encourage you, as far as scholarships go, there are scholarships out there where you can have a 2.5 or a 2.7. Like, you don't have to be a 3.0, but I encourage that a 3.0, because the likelihood of you being accepted is definitely higher. 3.0 and above is like, it's a very solid GPA for a student. And so I just encourage you, and there are institutions that will accept students with 2.5s and 2.7s, but you have to think about the level of institution. A Yale, for example, or a Harvard, they may not look at your child seriously with a 2.5 because they're a rigorous school. Their education is rigorous, it's very challenging academically, but also rewarding. And so the level of school is going to matter as well. And that's a whole nother conversation, but you just really have to look at where your child is academically and what would be the best fit for that child to have a successful year. But I would say if they are in middle and high school, you have to get them in a system of performing well academically and putting the supports around them, like mentoring, like tutoring, even sports and being in bands. Like they say, when your kids are around peers that play sports or in social clubs or things of that nature, if they're performing academically, your child has no choice to also perform academically, because they see how the group works, how the group is working. They hear the goals and the ideas that these students have in terms of their academics. And so they also say that sports help, that collective, that social aspect. It is so key. Musical instruments help produce academically sound students. And so just finding those things that your child can participate in that would encourage them to progress academically, I say, would help as well.
That's excellent. And it was something that you mentioned about, going to different schools. I would also add that it is important to go on those campuses so your child can see the vision, because sometimes they need to see it. My son already knows he wants to go to Hampton, and not because I forced him. I'm excited, but he pretty much has made his decision. But what I told him was, don't do it because of me. Don't do it just because the girls are cute. Don't do it just because you had fun this summer with SAT prep. Do it because you're going to have to live with these people for 4 years. So it has to be a place where you feel at home. I cannot make that decision. So I would encourage you, parents, you do need to go on these college campuses. And where does your child feel home? Don't force them to go to your alma mater if they don't want to. Let
True.
them go where they feel at peace and home, because you will not be on that campus with them.
That is
Shakira, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that I love about Henry, your son, is that he actually is thinking about his career in choosing Hampton University as his choice because he's already done the research and knowing what he wants to do as a career, but then he knows what institution actually supplies him with what he needs in order to have that particular career. And so I would encourage any parent, like if your child is thinking about a certain career, the best thing you can do is take them to colleges or universities or get them connected to programs like ours and have them do the research on it. I remember when my daughter was, we were going through this process with her, and she played basketball, and that helped her through college as well, as far as her, me not having to take out loans. It was her academics as well as her sports ability. And so she played basketball. And so her dream, I want to go to California. I want to play to UCLA. So we got online, and this was free. We got online, we looked to see what UCLA's tuition was, what the SAT requirements was, the 3 point, what kind of GPA was needed, like what was the rate of the GPAs that they accepted, whether it was the 4.0s, 3.0s, what that rate was. And all institutions have this information, the graduation rate. And what else did we look at? And we also looked at where the basketball team recruited from. That was also important. I said, because how is a UCLA going to get eyes on you who's on the East Coast and they're a West Coast school? And so, and I said, and that's the thing, I was never a dream crusher. I said, I won't tell you that you can't go to UCLA. I'm just going to show you what it's going to take to get to UCLA. And so you have to be willing to do those types of steps with your kids in order for them to see like this can be a reality, but it's going to take some work. It's going to take some work and some research.
Great. And by the way, if you are enjoying what you hear so far, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, give it a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell because, girl, we got part 2 coming up. And also, 𝗪𝗂 is talking about these things. We're going to provide for you a PDF of a lot of the scholarships available. We're going to talk about need-based schools in the upcoming questions, and you're going to see those. You're going to have some books, some different things that you can access even with a simple PDF. So there will be a link down there to go ahead, opt in, give us your email address, and you will get access to that PDF. All right, well, we have a couple more questions and then we'll be going on to part 2, but can you explain, 𝗪𝗂, the importance of starting the scholarship search early in the college application process?
I would say I cannot stress this enough, and I'll use this story. So last year was my first full year working with with educational talent search students. I was new to Hampton University. The class when I came in they were about to graduate, so I didn't have a lot of time. And so my first full year was in 2023. And so one of the parents who had a son, and he was pretty brilliant, very smart young man, she really didn't know where to start, where to go with him as far as the educational process. She knew what schools he wanted to go to, but again, it's always the money. And so I did a workshop online. I talked about, the different scholarships, the different websites. We were sending out scholarships. And she was very organized and very methodical about him applying to certain scholarships and things of that nature to meet whatever need he was going to have. And so you got to remember, this is a projected need. You don't know exactly what you're going to need until you decide or your child decides what institution that they're going to go to. And so he graduated as the class salutatorian. We knew he was going to be either one because he was, like I said, brilliant. He was the class salutatorian, but he had a lot of full ride offers because he was a young man in STEM. I cannot stress the importance of Black men in STEM and where that money is that there's a lot of money out here for that. And your child may have no interest in it, but definitely STEM is a huge way to go. But just not to digress, we were sending those scholarships, and by the time he graduated or when the final numbers came in, he had won $1 million in scholarships. So it's possible if you do the work. I mean, she had spreadsheets, when they applied, did they turn the essay in, those types of things. Like, you have to have a strategy. And I would say my own self, I did not have this strategy because I was fighting with my son the whole time. Like, this was a fight between me and him because I didn't know what I was talking about. And I said, do you realize this is what I do all day? And so so that was my biggest hugest argument with my son. So, and he didn't finally get it until closer to him graduating, but thank God he got it eventually. And so, what I would say is the earlier you start knowing like where the money is, the easier it's going to be for you when it comes to applying and when it comes to like knowing what it is you need. So I can say research it at any given time. If your child in the 8th grade say, I think I want to be a nurse, start Googling nursing scholarships. Where's that money at for people who want to be nurses and on an undergraduate level? Where's that money located at? If you can find where that money is located at, all you got to do is keep a record of it. Oh, this is the website we were on. This is how much it says they offer, because a lot of these scholarships out here is something that is ongoing. They typically don't die unless the money just dwindles, but that's very rare because these organizations, these foundations, they typically are constantly in a fundraising mode to keep this pot of money going for years to come. And so that's what I would say. Take the time and research it. I cannot stress that enough. The more you research, the more conversations you're having with your children about who it is they or what type of career they would like to have and what college or university they think they would like to attend, the better off you're going to be in terms of getting it done, because they're going to see you're invested, and then they're going to have the need to be invested, and have real conversations with your kids about money. Have it. I ain't got no money. That was my line. I ain't got no money and I ain't taking out no loans. That was my line, and they knew it. And I said, if you want to make college a reality, this is the work we're going to have to do. It's just that easy. And so I would just really have that serious conversation and have it in your heart that I do not want to take out any loans for my child to receive this education. I do not want that burden of debt. I do not want, whatever the line is, you fill in the blank, and do the work necessary to make sure that that happens.
Excellent. Excellent. And a couple of the last two questions, because they both are dealing with the same thing. Tell us a little bit about need-based schools and how they can help students and families financially.
Oh, yes. So this is something that I think a lot of people really don't know about, but there are institutions out here that are need-based, or what they might say need-aware. So if your child applies to a need-aware or a need-based institution, what typically happens is with a need-based, and I'm going to use that one particularly, with a need-based, they may say after you complete your FAFSA, and that's your financial aid form that says what grants and things that you qualify for, there may be, a deficit still. So say, and what they have is your student aid index is what they're calling it now, your SAI. That's the amount of money that they're saying that you may possibly be able, be responsible for. So say that amount is $18,000. And through all your aid, you may get 18,000, or you might say the school is 47,000. And then there's still a deficit there of about 18,000, because the financial aid organization said that, well, that's about how much money you can pay. Okay, fine. And so what the need-based or need-aware schools will do is actually fill in those holes. They'll fill in that gap that might be there in terms of what you need to have that tuition fully paid. Sometimes, depending on the institution, they do balance it out with the financial aid, and that might include loans. But then you have institutions who say, well, the parents are not going to take out any loans. The student is not going to take out any loans. We're going to meet all of that need. So whatever grants you have, and if they say, well, you need $15,000 more dollars, they're going to use institutional funds to help you meet that need. And so there are institutions out here that actually do meet the need, and they're pretty wealthy institutions, Duke being one of them. They are a school that will try to meet the need of the student without you having taken out any loans, the parent either. That's important to know. Like, their whole goal is that, yes, while you're here at Duke, you won't have to take out any loans to be a student here. What I will tell you, it takes a lot to get inside of Duke. As far as rigor and, your history and everything. And thankfully, if you live in the state of North Carolina, they have special grants or funds or tuition And I can't remember the name of the program, but they have a special program down in North Carolina for people who might want to go to Duke that are African American. And so just looking into those types of things, I think would save you a lot of time. And some of these institutions, there's some in Virginia, there's some in Pennsylvania, even in Maryland. I believe Georgetown, DC, Maryland area. And so there are institutions that will actually try to help you meet that hole that you might be having financially, to have that tuition paid. And so it's just a matter of researching and seeing what their rules are in terms of meeting that gap. They might consider loans in it, but then some other ones like, yeah, no loans for the parent or the child. We're just going to find those institutional funds to make sure that that gap is met. And so that's what a need-based or need-aware school is.
Very good. And I wanted to ask you about that child who got the 1 million. So let's say he got enough money to cover all 4 years of the school. What happens to that other scholarship money? What can he do with that?
So any money, and most institutions will do this, and sometimes depending on the institution, some of them, may deduct how much they say your aid or how much they're awarding you. So he received full rides to most of his institutions. So any community money that he received or from local organizations or things of that nature, they'll send it to the school, but it often goes back to the student. Some institutions, like I said, might reduce what they say is a full ride, because you have other funds coming in, and then they may give you less amount of money on that full ride side just because you have those additional incomes. But then you have some organizations who give the money straight to the student, my son being one of them. And so he's won 3 scholarships. And all that money is going straight to him because that's how they pay the money out, the actual organization, and he's able to use the funds for whatever he needs it for. But at the end of the day, his tuition is already paid. And so that money just goes in the bank.
So he's not calling you, asking you for groceries to go to Walmart. None of, look at God. Let me tell you. See, so he is, woo. Wow.
Move-in day is this weekend. He has been buying his clothes. He has buying stuff, for himself. And so it takes a relief off me, that I don't have to do it. Of course, I'm gonna help. His father is gonna help, but the bulk of it is not on us at this point. The other thing I would tell y'all too is that there are internships that are available on campuses. If you have a good institution that's really serious about giving your students some work, and not work study, but giving some work experience based on internships, really look into those programs. Look into those programs or scholarship programs or scientific programs that maybe even pay your child a stipend that's on that campus, like really digging into the school of choice that they have for the major that they have and see what they are offering. I will tell you a lot of times it's the STEM programs that's doing that though. And maybe some other ones, but I know STEM is very heavy because they often get a lot of funding from major corporations and organizations that really want to drive that STEM aspect home. And so I tell people, like, college is a place where you can build wealth as a young adult if you use the money wisely. If you use it wisely and are responsible with it over the 4 years. Because what happens is, like on campus, like, you don't really have to buy food. But guess what our kids do? They go Uber Eat. Everything dash, what is that thing? DoorDash, all that kind of stuff. Like they're doing those kind of frivolous things. And you really have to give them the perspective is this is the amount of money I'm giving you. If it goes, you're on your own. So I strongly encourage you to eat at the caf when it's open. And then save your money because homecoming comes up. Everybody wants new, fresh gear, fresh shoes, fresh everything. It's those types of events that happen on a campus that they want to look their best, they want to be their best, they want new hair, new shoes, whatever it is. But you have to teach them in a mindset to prepare for those things. And that's what I told my son. I said, I really need you to be very mindful about what it is you're spending. I said, because what I'm not going to do is feed your bad habits. Literally, I'm not feeding them. I will help and I will aid, but I'm not going to feed bad habits. If that calf is open, I need you to eat to the calf. And if you want to treat yourself every now and again, there's nothing wrong with that. but how much is that meal going to cost you? And how often is that treating going to be? You know, and so it's having those types of conversation because you want to prepare them for after graduation because they might have to learn how to cook is the reality, you know? And so those are some of the things that I would say in terms of scholarships and internships and things of that nature and preparing them financially to be able to sustain, you know, and that leftover money when they get refund checks. You might even know they got refund money. You might not ever hear about, but he's still taking your money. But you know, that's something that can happen if you do the work that's necessary. And again, teaching them how to save and just giving them that background to be sustainably well and not fashionably well.
Well, Shakir, it has been such a pleasure talking with you in this part one of, just helping parents and kids to get more knowledgeable. We are looking forward to the next session, part two. And again, those of you who are watching, check us out. Go ahead and click that subscribe button, that like button, and that notification button because we have more to come. And also remember, right below this video, there is a PDF just for you, highlighting a lot of the information that we shared, books and institutions and programs and need-based schools. That is all yours. Just click that link, enter your email address, and you will receive a PDF download of that. So again, Shakir, thank you so much. And thank you all for watching. We will see you in the next session.